What's up everyone? My name is Morcie, and if you're new to this channel, I encourage others to experience the joy of just being. And in today's video, I want to talk about how you can determine whether or not you are projecting. Projection is something we've all done because it's unconscious. We don't even realize we're doing it until either we figure it out within ourselves or maybe someone points it out. But projection, it's unconscious. It's an unconscious defense mechanism. The ego, right? It's done by the ego. The ego, it has this identity, and the ego, it wants to stay true to that identity. So if anything tries to disturb that identity, the ego will take this quality and it will place it onto someone else without looking within, without determining if that quality is also within itself. You know, it's easy to just project. Why? Because you're avoiding. There's no approach to it. So here's two things I want to share with you to help you approach that, to help you be more open to that. One, it takes an environment that is open to psychological safety, right? Meaning it's comforting, it's healthy. You don't feel as though you're going to be blamed. You don't feel as though you're going to be humiliated or ridiculed. It's open, it's in complete learning environment. For me, this is my journal. I go outside, I sit under a tree, or I'll be in my room with a candle, whatever. I create a nice calming environment for myself, and I start writing. And the next thing I do, which is number 2, is take accountability. You see, there's a difference between accountability and blame. Blame is saying, this is what I did, therefore this is who I am, and let's just sulk in it. Accountability is, this is what I did, this is not who I am, but you know what, I'm gonna figure out what I can do about it. There's a solution. It's more solution oriented when it comes to accountability. You'll find that there is this feeling of relief, this feeling of lightness, when you finally figure out what you were projecting, when you finally figure out that you were even projecting in the first place. Because you'll find that you'll drop that barrier, that wall of separation you had with yourself and the other person. You actually see that you're not so superior to how the ego had created this narrative of you, but you're a human being, and so is the other person. When you're looking down on someone in any way, that's a feeling of fear. Even though it's this need for superiority, it's ultimately fear. It's fear because the ego, again, wants to uphold an identity. It wants to be something. And it's getting in the way of the truth of who you are. It's getting in the way of you feeling free, of you enjoying and being in the state of just being, right? Nothing to prove and no image to protect. When you have nothing to prove, when you have no image to protect, there is no wall. You are just you. There's this quote that I like to remind myself of. I like to say to myself, so that when I journal or when I find that I feel just an ounce that I'm projecting, I'd make it a little clear. And this quote is by Eckhart Tolle, and the quote is, whatever you resent or react strongly to in another is also within you, right? Whenever you find yourself reacting so strongly to what someone else said or someone else did, there's a little piece of that within you. Otherwise, you would have let it just pass by with indifference. It wouldn't have threatened that ego consciousness. It wouldn't have threatened that identity. Now, there's this question I want to answer that I've heard before, and I laugh, but it's a good question. It said, if I dated a cheater, right, and I got upset at that cheater, does that mean that I'm a cheater too? Right? Because the whole idea is whatever you react to within another is also within you. No, not necessarily. But we do know that cheating comes from a sense of insecurity, not being aware of one's own value or worth. So a cheater might go out and try to find that elsewhere, outside of itself. Now, that sense of value and worth might be what is not apparent within yourself. Not apparent of the fact that you are worthy, you are valued. But all of that, where you're not aware, it gets projected onto the cheater for not acknowledging your value and your worth, where that is actually your job. That's when you begin to form a very healthy relationship with your mind, with yourself. Well, you say, you know what? This person, they cheated, but it doesn't have anything to do with my value or my worth. Right? And this is just small in a nutshell. I'm not going to go too deep within that. It's an insecurity. And all you would have to do is sit back and determine how to let go. So much of our awakening is about letting go, detaching from identities, detaching from fears, detaching from success and narratives and all these expectations that we place on ourselves. When you let yourself go, you are being, you are experiencing the joy of being. Therefore, the process is effortless. You know, you ever notice when you're with someone and something within them, right, it bothers them so much. Like, when, for example, I'll give an example. You're with someone and someone else does something that bothers that person so much, but it doesn't bother you. Just let it pass by with indifference. That's how you know that whatever that person does, it's not really within you, because it doesn't threaten any part of you, but to the other person it is. So you can see, okay, they're projecting, but it doesn't bother me. This is just an example to help you understand, okay, when am I projecting and when am I not projecting? And if I don't know whether I'm projecting, I'm gonna create a healthy environment, psychological safety. You could journal, you can talk to someone else. I highly recommend that you create a habit with primarily creating the safety within yourself first before you go and confide in someone else. And number 2 is that accountability. It feels so good, honestly, to recognize when you are projecting. When the ego weeps for what it has lost, the spirit rejoices for what it has found. That pain you feel is not the real you. When you feel that fear, whenever you have to sit down for yourself, it's not the real you, it's the ego breaking down. The ego, it's weakening. And that's why you feel light. That's why you feel so free. That's why everything feels so clear. Next, I want to get to a question that was asked in one of my previous videos. This question was asked by Cesar Jara. Cesar asks, so I meditate every day and I feel like it helps bring me back to my center and realign and stuff. So I try to do it when I wake up and before I go to bed. But sometimes I'll get into a funk where I'm like, what's the point? Or I guess where I'm bored or preoccupied or just elsewhere and it ruins my meditation. What's your take on that? And do you have any little tricks or anything for pulling yourself out of that state or being more present? I've been there before. I still go there sometimes. And there's a couple things I want to do so you can be more flexible. Number one is to be more flexible with your meditation routine, right? Number one, you don't have to necessarily sit in a meditation pose and in a traditional meditation pose before you go to bed and wake up. You don't have to do that. Right? You can actually implement meditation throughout the day, right? And I actually created quite a few videos on this, but you know, one is being aware of your own presence as you do whatever you're doing. That allows you to be in this state of being and you're fully in the moment. So whenever you're doing something small or simple, whether you're brushing your teeth before bed, whether you're making your bed in the morning, whenever you're fully doing what you're doing, fully present to what you do, you feel this sense of joy flow through you. Because all of that focus is going into the present moment. All of your energy is in the present moment. And it's not immersed within the mind. So consider meditating, adding meditation throughout what you do during the day. That's actually been something I've shifted to more throughout the day, is being able to focus my attention more and more on what I'm doing. Number two, the mind, what you'll notice too when you're anywhere and you feel bored, the mind is trying to attach itself onto something. So if you're meditating and you notice while you're there and you're sitting in stillness, then all of a sudden the mind, it's like, I'm bored, it wants to do something else, go somewhere. It wants to attach onto something else. It wants something else to give it a sense of simulation, because it's not yet used to having this relationship with space, having this relationship with stillness, where there's a sense of reward in being there. And that's something that we build up, you know, throughout our practice. That becomes our intention, that becomes our focus. And so, you know, my recommendation for that too is maybe just shorten your meditation. If it's something that you do every day, if you do it for 5 minutes, make it 1 minute. Call it a day. You did a great job. Don't focus on how long you're meditating, but focus more on that process of meditation. Focus on what's happening. How present are you while you're there, right? Focus on how often are you bringing yourself back to presence. Even the simple acknowledging, like, oh, there goes my mind trying to attach onto something, I'm bringing myself back, right there. It's beautiful. That's wonderful. You'll notice that the more you do that, the more there's this sense of no thought. There's this sense of just being, that spaciousness, right? It begins to just expand all on its own, effortless, without you even having to try. Live in a state of gratitude, everyone. My name is Morcie. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out these 2 videos right here. Until next time, peace.